It's a name you all know, and a name some of you probably loathe, and in case you're one of the few people who doesn't know Konami, let me get you up to speed. These guys were a major video game publisher back in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. If you knew anything about video games, you probably knew Konami, home to several major video game franchises like Castlevania, Pro Evolution Soccer, Metal Gear, Silent Hill, and even some non-video game series like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Dance Dance Revolution. Well, DDR, it's a video game, but it's like an arcade game, so it's not like a standard home console game. You get what I'm saying. They also gave rise to one of the most well-known, respected video game directors of all time, Hideo Kojima, someone you probably know even if you don't know Konami. But as the years went on, as we entered the 2010s, they kind of started leaning too much into the non-video game sphere, especially the gambling sector. Then in 2015, they fired Kojima and canceled his highly anticipated Silent Hill project. All these controversial decisions, combined with allegations of worker abuse and mediocre video game releases in the years following Kojima's firing, made the company leave a pretty sour taste in people's mouths. Well, come 2021, Konami announces a restructuring of their video game department. They consolidate their production sector, removing several redundant management divisions in order to ease communication between the publisher and its development studios. They also appoint several managers who specialize in console game development, suggesting a shift from their focus on mobile games and pachinko machines. This announcement didn't make any major headlines at the time, but we will soon see that it was a pretty monumental decision, because in 2022, towards the end of the year, Konami announces several major updates to the Silent Hill franchise. They announce a remake of Silent Hill 2 and 3 brand new Silent Hill games. A few months later, they would also reveal a remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 and ports of a few old Metal Gear titles to modern platforms. These are things that, just 3 years prior, would have been unthinkable from a company like Konami. Everyone assumed they just kinda left their IPs for dead, so naturally, this got people pretty hyped. Has Konami finally come to its senses and started caring about video games again? Well, mostly yes, but this revival did sort of have a rough start. First of all, you still have a lot of people pissed off at Konami, even to this day, for all the stuff they did to Kojima and just the general path they took in the years leading up to this. And that's understandable. It's going to take a while to regain the trust of those people after the company had screwed up like that. But also, those old Metal Gear Solid ports were released a few months after being announced in a very buggy, unoptimized state, which was a little ridiculous considering the collection had a $60 asking price. Then about a week later, they released one of those brand new Silent Hill titles, which turned out to be a badly written interactive TV show that nobody liked or cared about. Now, to be fair, the issues on those Metal Gear ports have since been fixed, and a few months after that dumpster fire of a Silent Hill game, they released a game called Silent Hill: The Short Message, which was like a nice little spin-off. You know, it got decent reviews. But still, this lackluster game rollout got people pretty worried about that Silent Hill 2 remake, especially considering the developer behind it had a track record for making somewhat mediocre horror games, and up until this point, we hadn't heard anything from the game or the other two Silent Hill titles in over a year. Now, I talked about this in an older video. I didn't have a problem with this particular developer remaking the game because it's a lot easier for them to recreate an already existing storyline rather than making a brand new one from scratch. But I can understand why people were skeptical, especially when, on the day that they released The Short Message, they finally showed gameplay footage from the remake, and yeah, it did not look amazing. Allegedly, it was footage from an earlier stage in the game's development cycle, but again, it really wasn't a good look given how the last few releases had gone. And so now you had people wondering, like, is this game even gonna be any good? Well, fast forward to October 8, 2024, the game officially launches, and surprisingly, yes, the sound design is excellent. The game still has its creepy, unsettling atmosphere and clunky combat. It has great voice acting and art direction. Bloober knocked it out of the park with reimagining the most popular game in the Silent Hill franchise. So much so that in just a week of the game being out, it had sold over 1 million copies, making it the fastest selling Silent Hill game of all time. And clearly that got Konami's attention because a few months ago they greenlit Bloober remaking the first Silent Hill. I actually played the Silent Hill 2 remake. I thought it was amazing, so I'm definitely excited to see what they do with this one. Now, about 5 months after the Silent Hill 2 remake was released, we finally get an update on one of the other Silent Hill games they announced 2 years prior, Silent Hill F. And this time, the trailer actually looks pretty good. The game is set in Japan, which is surprisingly a first for Silent Hill. It's got a pretty cool art style going for it. People seem to be pretty excited. And, well, the game released about a month ago, once again, to great reviews and record-breaking sales. Now, we still haven't heard anything from the last new title known as Silent Hill Townfall, but hopefully that one turns out well too, at least based on how these two latest titles have been. They also seem to be doing good stuff with Castlevania. I'm not too well versed on that franchise, but from what I've seen over the last couple of years, they've been making some pretty good ports of old Castlevania titles onto modern platforms. Maybe they'll make a brand new installment at some point. As for Metal Gear, that seems to be doing pretty well too. The Metal Gear Solid 3 remake had some promising looking trailers, and when the game released about 2 months ago, it was pretty well received. The only real complaint I've seen is with the game's optimization, but from what I can tell, that's an issue with a lot of Unreal Engine 5 games, including Silent Hill, so it's not exclusively a Konami Konami issue. And one thing I really gotta give him credit for is how they've treated David Hayter, the guy who voices Snake in most Metal Gear games. Don't get me wrong, Kojima is a great visionary and everything, but let's be real, he's kind of full of himself sometimes, and from what I heard, he kind of looked down on Hayter the entire time they worked together just because he wasn't a big A-list Hollywood actor. He didn't really appreciate Hayter's contribution to the franchise. I mean, he didn't even bother telling him that he wasn't going to be cast for Metal Gear Solid 5, whereas Konami, with them recently reviving their IPs, actually brought back Hayter to do a few commercials and re-record some voice lines for the remakes and ports. Like, say what you want about the company, but you gotta give them credit for actually respecting the actors that put so much time and passion into their franchises. Now, if only they could announce Volume 2 and, you know, maybe a Metal Gear Rising sequel, please, Konami? To be clear, I don't want to turn this into some kind of Konami glazing session. It's great that they're starting to focus on their IPs again, but it's too early to tell how this is going to play out. And again, I don't blame people for still being upset about the whole Kojima fiasco. Hopefully, they'll follow the same path as Capcom, who has had a pretty big resurgence in popularity ever since they rebooted Resident Evil in 2017. I have a pretty good feeling that they will, so really, the best thing we can do is keep buying their games so they know that, you know, they should keep doing what they're doing because this is the Konami we all know and love. The fact that they're communicating with fans and even publishing their survey results is honestly a pretty good sign. EA has also been giving us a tiny semblance of hope lately with how good Battlefield 6 has been. Maybe they can make a comeback as well. And that's the end of this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, definitely consider hitting the like and subscribe button if you want to support the channel. Additionally, you can leave a super thanks under this video or become a member. As always, this is your captain speaking. Over and out.